Oh. Woo, we're live!
Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is James,
And I'm Megan.
and we're coming to you live from Bali to wherever you are in the world right now.
Yeah.
And I just want to say a big hi to all of you that are watching right now and all of you who are watching after the fact. Thanks for taking the time. We're really happy to be here with our puppies who are currently running around the floor like mad dogs.
So if you hear them in the background, that's what it is.
You might have heard that. We just bought another one home recently.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're really going for it.
You think, should I move them?
No, let him go. If it gets
Okay.
too much, we'll... So, we're invited along here today by Sophia, by Karuna and Priya, who are good friends of mine. And I had the pleasure actually of having them on a teacher training here in Ubud, Bali, where the idea of this project was birthed. So it feels amazing for me to be part of this loop and to be here on this program speaking to you about it. And I guess we wanted to start by saying a huge thank you for both of these amazing human beings for doing this work and the entire Warrior Women Day team for putting this project together. It's much needed and very good work to do.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really inspiring to see the vision and all the people that are teaching here. It's a beautiful community. And if you're watching, say hi. We like to make it a dialogue too, so we know who's with us.
100%. And for those of you that want to support even further, you'll see that in the chat, you'll have a link to the donation. So if you want to donate a little to this cause, then that's where you go. So we're a little unusual, I guess, in this one because I get to do this with my fiance. And we're not necessarily doing movement or breath work. We're more having a conversation. And we're having a conversation, as you can see from the title, about the dance of masculine and feminine. And I think there's something...
Joelle's here.
Joelle.
Hi, Joelle.
Whoever else is watching, make sure you say hi. I think there's something important to say from the outset because, as I mentioned, we both think this is incredibly important work. It's such valuable work. It's such necessary work. And myself, alongside maybe one or two other men, are coming in the space of empowerment for women. So I'd like to say from the outset is that you absolutely have everything that you need. That actually all of the answers are already inside you. And I can give you no more than my perspective, than my own experience and what it's like to be in this form of central nervous system. So I think it's important for me to say from the beginning.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll just say one of the reasons I love teaching together is because, you know, we believe it's really different to grow up and to be biologically a man versus a woman. And so it's really cool to teach together and have like a female or feminine perspective and a man and a masculine perspective.
Absolutely.
And that being said, we're going to use the words masculine and feminine. We don't necessarily mean your gender, right? Like we're not here to put anyone in a box and to be like, you're a woman, you have to be feminine, or you're a man, you have to be masculine. It's more about noticing how these subtle energies play inside of your own body, knowing that we all have both.
Totally. It's such a good point. So when we're using this languaging and these words, one thing that we found really valuable is to recognize that within both of us, and the language and words we use to them don't really encompass them, and they're more like a guideline than a roadmap. They give you the information to go in a certain direction. And what we found was, when we really dive into this topic and research it, is that there are some fundamental aspects of this dance that would take many, many hours of YouTube videos to get across. But there's one or two in particular that we want to talk about that we hope will give you something to come away from this short talk that you can apply into your life, you can apply into your relationship, that you can apply into your healing in the context of masculine and feminine.
Maybe I'll just define what we mean by that briefly.
Can you? Yeah.
Okay. And I also just want to say I love seeing your guys' comments. Hi, Sophia. I'm glad you're here. So when we speak about masculine and feminine, masculine is the side of us that's like directed, goal oriented, on a mission, very dedicated to purpose, very clear, linear, A to B. Right? When I think of the feminine side of us, it's the part of us that's intuitive, maybe knows things without understanding why, or is in touch with our emotions, our sensuality, a sense of beauty, not just on ourselves, but in the world. And so we have both. And the dance between the masculine side of us and the feminine side happens inside as well as between.
Totally. And it's an interesting question just from the outset. You can see that this doesn't just apply to us as humans. Like, I often think about the place we're in. You can't see our backdrop, but it's beautiful Bali, lush jungle. And here everything's a little wild and chaotic and unexpected. Whereas if you went to New York or you went to a desert, then you might have a very different experience. And it's the same flavor. You can get the sense that the energetics we're speaking of go far beyond the body, whereas Bali is the big she and New York might be the big he. And neither of them really do them justice. But the interesting question is, just from that short piece, you might be able to get a sense of where you spend most of your time recently, or even today.
Yeah.
Was it in the directed and the linear, or was it in the wild and non-linear?
Yeah. And I'll just say, I think many women, I definitely grew up this way. We still live in a patriarchy, right? That values masculine qualities over feminine. And so I very much grew up with the feeling like, okay, I need to know where I'm going. I need to be ambitious and concise and directed, versus I need to be like soft and in touch with my emotions and my intuition and connected. And so if you're watching this, my guess is you may prone more towards masculine, but maybe not, because I know a lot of the other classes are around how to get in touch with your feminine. So it's just something interesting to notice is what side of you do you think is more important or more needed? Your masculine or your feminine, and what's the impact of that?
Totally. And you did that very well. The structured directed, you was incredibly successful. And everything you did from university, well, before university, but university on, became incredibly successful. But what did it feel like when you were just burning that one energy in your body?
I was like, I had the feeling of I have to be the best at everything. And so I became valedictorian and class president. And I was like, every 15 minutes was scheduled and I was very productive and very efficient, but I didn't feel much in my body. Like I would work out just to like stay fit, but not because I really felt anything. Intimacy, then it was a very thought about experience. Like, does he meet my checked boxes versus like, does my body feel good with him? And I would say it was really tiring. That was the biggest feeling. I was like, oh, I am just exhausted. I think that happens a lot for women that are burning their masculine energy at the detriment of their feminine side.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that you could have done all of that valedictorian, successful business because you wanted to and because it lit you up, and still being very much in touch with who she is as feminine. But I think what you're saying at that time in your life, that you weren't really acknowledging that part of you that was softer.
Yeah.
You'd learned not to, so that actually got ignored for the sake of what you got handed down.
Right. Like just a silly little thing is, as a little girl, I really wanted a princess bed. And my parents, being the amazing girl power feminist parents they were like, no, we're going to just get you a race car bed because then you'll be the same as your brother. And they were trying to do well, not raise me in the stereotypical feminine qualities. But at the same time, what that taught me is like, oh, it's not valuable. It's not important to allow the princess part of me, or the part of me that loves beautiful dresses and that loves to just spend time in nature and connect and feel my feelings and be creative, not just like logical.
It's also funny that you both didn't get princess beds.
Right, exactly.
Right, they both got the race car, not the princess. So these flavors and ideas of the way that we live our life are passed down in many ways. They're passed down through your family dynamics. Your mother and father will be a direct one. They're passed down through societal and cultural norms, and they're passed down through your experiences. And what I mean by passed down is how you're currently expressing them. So many experiences we can have within relationships, many experiences that we can have from trauma, can leave us being afraid, unwilling, or unwanting of going more into an energy. It can feel frightening and scary to move into your feminine power.
And to that note, I remember when someone's like, well, you should get in touch with your feminine side. My first thought was like, isn't that just like makeup and being kind of like prissy? And I think a lot of us conflate feminine with weak because as a culture, we're still learning to appreciate the power of tenderness and vulnerability as something that's actually strong.
Incredibly so. I'd even say more so. I'm curious for those of you that are watching right now too, whether you're doing live or afterwards, if you put a comment in the box just for today, so it might not be a regular section of your life, do you feel like you've been burning more of the masculine, the directed, the go-to, or more of the feminine in your body, non-linear feeling sense? So you can put an M or an F, or a masculine or a feminine, just so we know. And I think there's an important thing to recognize before we go into perhaps a little story, which is we personally live by the idea that you are completely whole and perfect. That there's nothing you need to change. That you can be in whatever energy currently is forever, and that's okay if you choose it, if you have a choice around it. So a lot of what this is doing is bringing awareness to what's going on, to give you the empoweredness that comes with choice. And a big part of this is first recognizing and understanding and looking a little bit into, even though we are perfect, life can't help but wound us in different ways. And this can be a beautiful, beautiful gift. As Mary Oliver says, someone once long ago gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to realize that this too was a gift. Now, a short story that I think helps really get this into an idea is one by Bayo Maka'alalfi, I think is how you pronounce his name. And it goes a little something like this. Once upon a time, in the center of a village, a father lay dying. And he called out to his son and his daughter who were working in the city and say, I'm approaching my last days. Will you come home to see me off? Being a good daughter, being a good son, they made the travel from the city back to the village. And as they sat with their father, looking particularly old and particularly frail, his father said, let us do one thing before I die. Let us work on a project and do something and create together. Let us build a home. Let us build a hut. So they all three went down to the side of the hut and started working, digging the foundations, laying the foundations, building the walls. This, of course, took a little while. And after a short time or a long time, or a very long time, about halfway through, the father became too frail and too weak to work. So he went and lay down. The son and the daughter continued to work on the hut. They built the walls strong and solid and smooth. They laid the thatch roof. They laid the windows. They laid the path leading up to the door. They laid the fence. And I tell you what, it was about as perfect as you could imagine a hut to be. Very proudly, they walked back into the room where their father lay dying and said, Papa, we've done it. We have finished the hut. And the father said, is it complete? And they said, yes, it is, Father, it's complete. And he said, is it whole? And they were a little confused, but they said, yes, it's whole. He said, is it perfect? And they were even more confused by now, but they said, yes, Father, it's perfect. And just as they said, yes, it's perfect, the father jumped up with an unnatural, unworldly strength, grabbed a large hammer and strode off towards the new hut. When he got there, he looked at these beautifully built walls. He looked at this beautiful thatch roof, the way that the path lined up just so. He saw that everything indeed looked perfect. So he went to one wall, pulled back his hammer, and with one giant mighty swing, knocked a big hole in the side of the hut. Now you can imagine by this stage the son and the daughter are a little confused. And they say, "Father, why did you destroy this perfectly well-built hut?" His father said, "Well, when your new neighbors and friends walk by this gate, they'll see the hole in the hut and they will come in to ask you why there is a hole. And when they come in to ask you why there is a hole, they'll ask you for your name and you'll give it, and you'll ask for theirs and they'll give it. Once you have the name, you'll invite them in and you'll sit for tea and bread and you'll get to know one another. Community is not possible until you are wounded. Wounds are the thing that your community is built around. Wounds are your gift to the world." It's a sweet story, huh?
It's a really sweet story.
And I guess why I feel called for telling it now is that yes, we have perfection. On top of perfection, we have wounds that are passed down, wounds that we've learned, wounds that add to our perfection. When we know them, we can acknowledge them and we can share them. And it's our choice what we do with them. So when it comes to this particular dance of the masculine and feminine, for whatever reason, many of us, men and women, have learnt to negate and shut down that side of ourselves that runs feminine energy. We've found that that wound that was open was too painful to bear and have not had the permission to allow it to come out. So this is the point that I'm going to stop talking for just a little bit, because I'd love Megan to speak a little about how people that are interested in touching that energy again and running it through their body and their world as a gift, some words around that.
Yeah. Well, so many things. I think one of, when you were telling the hut story and the hole in the wall, I think one of the holes in my walls, and my guess is you may relate to this. The dogs are playing, you might hear them too. Is the feeling of like, I have to do it all by myself. Like, I think that a lot of us have the feeling of like, I need to be very self-sufficient and take care of myself, and especially women. I'm not so sure if it's true of men. You can add to it, but the feeling of like, it's not safe to depend on someone. So that's kind of the conditioning. And then we may have this experience of like, okay, I finally open my heart. I finally trust a masculine person. And then I get heartbroken. They cheat on me. They leave me.
Or worse.
They weren't who I thought they were. Or worse, they hurt me. And then it's like, okay, I've finally gone past all of my learning on self-reliance to trust someone, and then my trust has been broken. And so I thought we could talk a little bit about that, about what happens after that, after your trust has been broken.
That's such a great topic.
Yeah. Okay. First thing I want to say is, as feminine beings, or as the feminine side in you, your body is constantly responding to the environment. It's either opening and moving towards like, yes, I like that. Or there's a pulling and a contraction moving away from. Ideally, this is happening just in natural response to the environment, right? So when James comes home and he's really with me and he hugs me, then I'm like, yes, that feels great, right?
It's exactly what she looks like. It's true.
Or if he's, I'm trying to talk to him and he's on his phone, he's checked out, then it's like, ouch, that hurts. That doesn't feel so good. That's a little example. It could be a big one. Like, I find out he's lying to me. Hasn't happened yet, but then it'd be like, ouch. And then there's the closing, the contracting. Does that make sense?
Totally.
But the thing is, no one ever taught us that our bodies do this. And so many of us have learned to, when we are closing, which is our own body's wisdom, we A, don't notice it, or B, we rationalize over the top of it. So just a little example. I'm going to say the scooter story, I think. When I first came to Bali, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to meet some people. And I'm single, and I hadn't met James yet. And this guy was like, well, let's go to dance. You can go on my scooter. And I was like, okay. And then he only had one helmet, and he put it on and said, you don't need a helmet, right? And then we start driving, and he's driving really fast. I'm like, wait, can you slow down? And he slows down for a second, but then keeps going fast. And then it starts raining, and he has one raincoat, and he puts it on himself, and I get wet, right? And so you can see in my body, pretty soon I'm like, this doesn't feel good anymore. But in my mind, and what he said to me is like, you teach feminine work, you should just surrender into the moment. I was like, no, you shouldn't just surrender. You should be in a moment that's worthy of surrendering.
Yeah.
But my mind was like, no, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, it's okay if I get wet. It's okay if I don't have a helmet. Right? And so I was thinking on top of my body's signals. Eventually I got there okay, and I was fine. You know, I never made a point to that man again, but I was fine. But it's just so many women's habits to not even notice when our bodies are closing, when we feel unsafe, or to think on top of it.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And, you know, in this case, and in many cases in your world and your life, it is, I think, the right thing to have some protection, right? To protect yourself from what's going on around you. And the bit that is worth looking at is when that's happening without you choosing to. So let's say, for example, Megan had this experience on a scooter, but then for the rest of the week, the month, or year, and she keeps that closeness down of her body actually when she wants to open. Knowing that for her, openness feels, what would you say? Feels what?
It feels like I'm safe. I'm safe, I'm loved, and the world feels more beautiful again.
And knowing that on the dance of the masculine side of things, what is incredibly attractive is a woman that's breathing and open to the world. So a lot of people have this experience, a lot of women will have this experience where their bodies protected them because it needed to protect them. And yet, unlike the wisdom of our puppies down there that might almost get hit by a scooter and just kind of shake it off, we as humans have the unique ability to relive that thing over and over and over again in our mind, but it's not just in our mind, it's in our bodies too. So we have an experience or many experiences. Could be one big trauma, could be going to a job that you just really don't like day in and day out. You know that feeling, right? Many of you would have had this. You walk into cross the door each day and it just closes, it dims your light a little bit. So again, the protection is exactly what our central nervous system is designed for. And yet, as Rumi would say, there's two types of breath. There's one that's shameful and constricted, and there's another that opens you all the way to God. And I would say the juice in is realizing when are the moments in your day that you want to allow yourself to open to nature, open to your partner, open to the flowers, or open to God.
Yeah, it's a beautiful point. I think you can tell when a woman is open because there's a certain, her face looks lit up. Like, literally, as women, we have the power, we're lit from the inside. It's so funny. We look around, I read this quote, we look around and see sunshine and wonder, where's the sun? And we're like, oh, wait, we're the sun. And when a woman's open, it's just like, the whole room smiles with her. Have you had that experience? Let me know below if you've had that experience. But yeah, to James's point, so many times it's like we were open and then something hurt or we didn't feel safe. And so it's easy for our bodies to develop a habitual closure. And you see women kind of like, hunkered down and their light's a little dim and their face is not as bright and they're a little more skeptical and a little bit like, and I mean this in your body, but also in the stories you tell yourself about how safe it is to be open, the way that you relate with men. Like, do you grant trust until it's broken, or do you make him prove his loyalty again and again and again? Right? These are all signs of how open you're willing to be.
Can I add something in there?
Yeah.
Well, just to another point, when it comes around choice, like Megan is a very open and beautiful and radiant woman. It's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to her from the moment I saw her. And, we live in a place actually in Bali where that's acceptable in a way. Like Bali is a very feminine place. There's a lot of yoga, there's a lot of dance, there's a lot of movement. But I would imagine if you were living in New York or Paris, as many of you are, and you actually went into a corporate job every day, that actually knowing the other way around is valuable. So it's not closing yourself down, but in those times during the day, there's some value and putting a little bit of that protection, a little bit of that not fullness, because you're not there for that purpose. You're there to do your work. However, at the end of the day, if she were coming back to me, one energy would have me greet her as a loved one who's a friend. The other one, if it was the opening, would have me greet her as my fiance. And the same is true of us here, but that's perhaps a more clear example.
Yeah, it's such a good example. Like, I used to be a leadership consultant, and there I didn't dress like this. I had pantsuits and I had a very tailored look, and I was very careful not to flirt or be too vivacious. But then with my partner now, it's different. And so I think one of the beautiful things as a feminine woman is having the choice of like, how much do I want to show my beauty and my light, and how much is it a better idea to have it kind of cloaked? Not that it goes away, but it's cloaked.
So what would you say for the people that are watching this that are like, that recognize some truth for them, that recognize that there might be moments in their life where they could really benefit by remembering this part of opening of themselves? What can they do to help touch it again?
Yeah. The first thing I would say, and you can do this right now, is to think about a moment when you felt naturally open and loving. So it may be like playing with your puppy. It might be holding a baby. It might be like an amazing kiss you had lately with your partner. A time you felt naturally like, oh, yeah. And if you can feel that in your body right now, notice the way that it impacts your body. For everyone, it may be different, but for me, it's like a opening across my chest. There's like a warmth here and a warmth in my belly. It's a softness in my belly. And this, to me, this is the feeling of opening. And just to James's story, it's not like something you learn. It's just a remembering of your natural state. And so that's one thing I would say.
I think I'd love to hear from those of you who are listening, rather than just the intellectual thing of listening to the words. When you bring that into your body, what is the moment that you think of? Is it with a puppy? Is it with your friend? Is it with your lover? Is it with a cup of cocoa on a warm Sunday afternoon? And if you feel brave enough, then type in the message. We'd love to see what it is too.
Yeah. What are the moments that you feel just spontaneously open, spontaneously full of love and radiant and juicy and alive? And then the next step is cultivating that deliberately with intention. And so a few ways you can do that. Should I get into it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I'm eager to see some chats, but I'll get into it. So a closure to me feels like a no in my body. And you can even say it in your head, no, and see what happens in your body. Like for me, it gets tight and tense. And then if you want to open, if it feels safe, you can just say yes. And take a deep breath and say, yes, yes. There's something about that word that's magical, where it's just like, yes, I am safe, I can open. The word and the deep breath does wonders. This is even more powerful if you practice it in moments when you're touching your own body. It can be your arm, your belly, or it can be self-pleasure, it can be sensual. But having that, like, yes, it is safe to feel, it is safe to be here, it is safe to be as sensitive as I actually am. Deep breath, yes, and then letting yourself relax into it.
Deep breath that opens you all the way to God.
Yeah, just like that.
What else can they do?
Well, I actually want to know from the masculine perspective. What do you think?
Of what helps get into the feminine sense?
No, like if she is closed off, what do you do?
What do I do to help her open?
Yeah. Oh. Maybe even tell the story of when I was teasing you yesterday in the office.
Oh, teasing is the word for it. There was, we had one of those funny interactions yesterday where something had come, we had some scratchy moments, like nothing major, but a couple of like, just sandpaper moments during the day. And I come up into the office and Megan gives me one of those looks. Every man knows the receiving end of those looks. And I think every woman knows those looks like this. And what did you say? Did you go straight to the wedge?
I was like,
we need to talk.
We need to talk.
I got a
There's
message
conflict.
actually. I got a text message saying from upstairs. She sent me a text message saying we need to talk, which is just those words as a man you never really want to hear. And I go up. She's like, "There's conflict arising. We need to talk."
Because I had felt the moments earlier in the day that were a little scratchy, and we'd both been working hard, so we hadn't had a chance to talk about it. But I was like, something doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good between us.
Yeah, it got to quite a big thing for her, and for me, it really wasn't a big thing. So here's a few different options that could have happened. I could have been, well, let's sit down and talk about it. I'll give you my perspective. You give me your perspective, and then we'll come out on a mutually agreed upon solution. It's actually a very common way to deal with it. It could be me.
Yeah, I just want to say that's really common, especially in nonviolent communication and authentic relating. And I think there's a beautiful place for that.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily sexy. It doesn't necessarily create a lot of masculine, feminine polarity to talk like that.
And not at all, but it can be very valuable.
But it can be valuable.
I could also go for, it's all about me. So why do you always blow things out of proportion? There is nothing going on. What is your problem? Can't you just totally relax? What is going on with you?
Guess what that would have had me do?
Right? It's probably just that time of the month.
Oh, don't do that.
Definitely
don't do that.
So I could have gone that route as well. Probably in my past, I would have gone the first one. So a second stage conversation about how we both feel. This time, thankfully, I remembered enough of myself and of you and of our deep foundation of love to play with it. So instead, I said something like, "Oh my God, you're right. This is a wedge in our relationship." And she did that. And I went, "This could be the end. Should I pack now?"
And I'm like, yes, you should.
You're right. This is a really big thing. This is just, it's the size of Mount Everest.
It's very big.
It's massive. I don't know what it is, but I know it's very, very big and serious.
Yes.
And by this stage, she was laughing. We got past the hurt and we went to the game of it. Now, what this meant was, if I'd gone at it as, you always do this thing, that would have created defensive, right? Then if I'd gone it as, let's sit down and talk about it, then it's like two friends talking. In this case, as a play thing, as bringing a humor to the situation, which for this case was right, then what it did was allowed her to open, allowed me to stay light, and allowed that polarity and that attraction to happen.
Yeah. You also kissed my cheeks and my neck and kind of tickled me.
Oh, that's true.
And what I would say in that moment, and this is true of a lot of feminine beings, what I really wanted was just your attention. I really just wanted to connect. But often we pick fights to connect. And so there's the flavor of I'm going to poke you or pick a fight and see what happens.
Totally. And, it's up to each of us to respond in a way that serves us and the other person. And some of you may have partners and they may be like this and they may not, and I'll screw it up sometimes and you'll screw it up sometimes. And it's also really valuable to know, I think, that the choice to open is always yours.
It's always a choice.
It's always a choice.
Yeah, I can decide in that moment of the fight yesterday how hard I want to make it for him. Right? Like if I'm like, we're scratching, it's a big deal. And then he tries to play and love me and I still stay like, no, this is big. I don't like you. You did it wrong.
Mm.
And make it impossible for him to win with me. That will have an impact on my relationship. Right? So it's like, I like bringing a little friction, a little drama, but I like it more when he can win.
So do I, just for the record. I would love it if you would speak a little bit because we have, about 10 minutes left. You've already mentioned a few things that people can do now, or women can do now to touch that part of themselves again. I know we talked a little bit about a self-touch practice. Is there some tool that we can leave them with that maybe they could even do today or tonight?
To get more in touch with their feminine?
To allow that part to soften a little, to express.
Well, it's just a really simple one. And I mean, there's a million, right? Like I teach women for months how to get in touch with their feminine. But as I think many of you are yogis and you already do a lot of work with your body, one of the best things that I know to get in touch with my feminine is nonlinear movement. So this actually comes from Michaela Boehm. But basically the way it works is you just turn on music that makes you feel alive in your body, whatever that means for you. And you can start on all fours. I find that helpful. And then just let your body move in any way that feels good as you keep attention on your breath. And as much as you can, resisting the urge to go into, defined yoga shapes. And instead just being like, okay, wait, oh, that's nice. Oh, that feels good. Oh, maybe over there. Because what you're doing in this, and do it as long as it feels good. At least 15 minutes, I would say. What you do in this practice is you take your attention out of your mind and into your body and into listening to the subtle signals of your body. And that's a very feminine art, I would say, is being able to listen like, okay, where is the pleasure? What feels good? And how do I move in a way that feels fluid and liquid so that all parts of me can relax and open?
Beautiful.
How's that?
I think that's perfect. And I have an idea for this last little bit. Maybe we lead a little meditation that plays with the two energies.
Okay.
Do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. Because I know that we've been talking for a long time and that you've been listening for a long time. So let's take a moment to integrate this. And what we'll do is we'll each play with guiding you through these parts of yourself that are already there. We'll just touch on them. So however you are, wherever you are, sit in a way that is comfortable. And once you find something that's comfortable, close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, notice where in your body you feel you. Is it your head, or your heart, or your belly, your hips? And whatever comes up, see that with an exhale, you can actually lower it a little so you sink into yourself, back into yourself slightly more. And with your eyes not just closed, but softly heavy, notice the tension that may be still within your face, your jaw, or the skin around your eyes, or your throat. And with your next breath out, let that fade away as well. So as you sit and breathe, for the first part, bring stillness to your body. So total stillness, even if the mind moves. And with the stillness of your body, notice that part of you that is solid and unwavering. Notice that part of you that has a strong and stable spine. Notice that part of you that is truly strong beyond measure. Notice your current thought and then drift back into the thing behind it. And take 1 or 2 breaths like this, noticing the thing behind the thing.
And now we're going to transition into feminine. So keep your eyes closed. But this time, bring attention to the sensations in your body. What do you feel? Maybe you notice what your neck and shoulders feel like, your chest, your belly, your hips. And with each exhale, bring a little more softness into your body. So now there's nothing to hold rigid or still, but you can actually just relax a little. Yeah, good. Now, following the movement of your breath, let it bring a little gentle movement into your body. So maybe that your inhale moves up your spine subtly, and then the exhale and your shoulders roll back. And the inhale, roll up, and a softening back. Feel all the liquids in your body as you move. Remembering that you're like 90% water. Feel the way that each breath moves your body slightly and subtly. And you can exaggerate it a little bit. So your inhale moves you even more, and your exhale softens you even more. You can let this feel good. So notice as you're breathing and moving subtly, what feels good inside of your body? Maybe it's the air moving through your nostrils, the softness in your belly. Maybe your spine's moving slightly and that feels nice. Give yourself some permission to not care about doing it right and just do what feels good. Take one more breath like this and let it go.
And then to seal this up, notice the solidness and strength of your own right arm and hand. And notice the softness and liquidity and the heat or the pressure of your own left hand. Allow them to float up a little ways in front of your chest and begin to bring them together so you feel them before they touch. Right, solid and stable. Left, maybe even moving a little, noticing the air over the skin. Eventually they'll come all the way in, no rush. Notice the absolute truth that both of these are inside of us. Notice the absolute truth that you are complete and whole. Bring your thumbs up to your deeper knowing between your eyes, your forehead. Take a small bow. And thanks and gratitude for all of the team that put together this event, for each one of the teachers teaching, for each one of the students being students, for all the men and all the women that are absolutely committed to changing the patterns of the past, to ourselves and the beautiful dance that is within us. Namaste.
I want to know, how was that?
Hmm.
I know we have to wrap up, and so we'll see your comments later, but just give us a little one word. How do you feel now?
That'd be great to know. Thank you all for joining us. We've really enjoyed talking about this, getting ready for it, and having the chance to teach it. Thank you for those of you, Sophia, Priya, that invited us into it. I love being a part of it. We love teaching on it. There's our puppies again. Thanks, Sana. Good to see you too. And if you are interested in donating, if you'd like to donate, the link's in the chat group. The support is welcome. If you want to learn more about us, we work with groups and couples and retreats and trainings on the realm of intimacy and sexuality. And you can, how do they find us? I guess they just look us up. We'll put our name in the comments.
Yeah.
Anything else from you, baby?
No, I think that's it. And I would just say, like, going back to the point of you're whole,
Yeah.
None of this is anything that you need to change or do, and may it be a joyful exploration rather than a problem to solve.
Beautifully said. Thank you, everyone. See
Thank
you
you,
later.
guys.